Hello, I'm Panos Kotzathanassis, and this is Asian Movie Pulse Interviews. Today I'm here with Isaac Woofter, director of the movie Bound, who is currently screening all over the US, if I am correct. How are you,
Yeah,
Isaac?
we're in the festival circuit at least.
Okay,
And so,
good,
yeah,
good. Yeah, yeah. How are you, Isaac?
I'm doing very well. Very excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, okay. So, apart from a director, you also act.
Yes, I actually started acting before anything, before all the rest of this stuff, filmmaking and whatnot. Um, for I don't know, since I was 18, 19 when I went to undergrad, which was a long time ago, actually, at this point. Um, yeah, and then actually about 10 years ago, I was, I've been on, had a little bit of success in some things. I was on Broadway for a little bit and did some TV, some small film roles, but mostly was doing theater, classical theater. And one day I was just realizing I wasn't liking anything I was auditioning for anymore. And I decided that, maybe I'll write something for myself. So I called my agents. I told them, hey, I'm pausing my acting career. I'm going to write for a while. And that started that. And that's how that happened.
Mhm, mhm. And how was the transition? Did the fact that you were acting before help you as a director, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it certainly helped me with the writing aspect of it first. I first just started writing, and then I realized I need to produce something and then direct it, to get the first one made. But as a writer, it absolutely did because it's instead of improvising with other casts, during rehearsal, I was just improvising with myself in my brain and my computer. So that's how I just got some characters I wanted to, they were just improvising in my head, just playing.
Mhm,
So.
mhm. And so how was your treatment of the actors during the set, considering that you were an actor before, now you're in the directorship?
Well, the first thing I thought that I really wanted to do is I wanted to write characters that the actors would be excited to play. So anytime I write, I'd be like, oh, what would be fun to play? What would be like, you know, the action that they're doing that would be fun, or the characters' quirks that would be fun. But that's the first thing. The second thing is because of my acting, I had a little sensitivity that and understanding that every actor is different and their process is different. So I approached each person knowing that and I wanted to give them the space to feel like they could take chances and they can, use their own things to feel comfortable enough to try things out. And so that was the big thing for me. So some actors they just wanted to they wanted to go. Some people wanted to improvise a little bit, and so I would say, okay, why don't you guys improvise 15, 20, 30 seconds? And at a certain point, we'll just go into it, and then I would have the director, the DP and the cinematographer roll. I wouldn't let them know that I've already started, the camera. Because oftentimes I found that a lot of those things they're improvising were great and very useful. Might have been even just a small reaction. Maybe it was a new line, maybe, something, but so each person I approach differently because of that. So I think that really helped them out to make them feel comfortable to take chances and stuff.
Mhm, mhm. And what was the inspiration behind the story and the characters? This is a character-driven story, essentially.
Yeah. So the inspiration was, well, I wanted to do this other movie. And the other movie was like a $5 million budget, let's say. And then it got into hand of some pretty big players. And then, but I had written that movie kind of as my own Rocky, for me to play. But I don't have a big enough name to carry a $5 million movie. So the studio said, you know what? We like the film, we like the writing, but you're not Matt Damon or you're not Ben Affleck. So we're not going to give you $5 million to do this film. We'll do this film, but we're going to give it to our writers, and the writers are going to strip all of these certain scenes, and we're going to make it a $300,000 movie. And at first I said, no, absolutely not. This is something I created. You're not going to do that to me. And then I thought after a little bit, I was like, oh, that's dumb. Just let the big studio make your movie. You'll write something else. You get to be in the movie. I was going to play the lead. And then COVID happened, and when we were all locked down. And it was during then that I was like, you know what? I think I can raise $300,000 or $400,000. Bound ended up being a little bit more than that, but I was like, I think I can raise that amount. So I said, I'll just write a different movie. So that was the first inspiration. And the second inspiration was a friend of mine. I was talking with him about some of their past trauma and experiences and how that's affected them and their mental health today and what they had to do. So I knew I wanted to do something about that. So sorry for I'm in New York City, if you couldn't tell by the sirens. This isn't where I'm at right now. So I knew I wanted to do something about that had some themes of some mental illness and some trauma, and with the hope of like, hey, you don't have to let this trauma define you. You can get past it through the help of some friends and of support group, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's whatever you end up doing. So those were the two. One was a purely I want to make a movie inspiration and passion. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I have this time now to actually sit down and really write it, and let's just produce it. And then the person that was helping me was the person I wrote that plays the lead in Bound, Alexandra Faye Sadeghian. And I said, you know what? You've been helping me with this, so let me write something and you can play the lead in that. And I took a couple stories from her life and just then created the characters in my head. And like I said, let them improvise in my brain and put it on the page.
So since you mentioned it, is this how the industry in the US works? Like it's totally celebrity driven, would you say?
I would say that it certainly helps to have a celebrity in your film. But it's really for indie filmmakers, it's different if I had a billionaire uncle that was like, hey, sure, no big deal. But I didn't have that. So you need to have a good script. The trick is to get that celebrity, you already have to have the money in the bank. And if you don't have the money in the bank, you can't get the script to the celebrity unless you personally know them. I can't go to a big agency and say, hey, I've got a great script. I want blah, blah, blah to play the lead, whoever it would be, Brad Pitt. And their first thing they will probably ask is, all right, cool. Do you have the money yet? And I'm like, I don't have the $20 million. They're not going to give the script to Brad Pitt or whoever. They're like, come back when you have the money. The catch is if you had that person attached, it's pretty easy to get the money after that. Much easier to get the money if you're like, oh, Brad Pitt is attached to this movie. So it's, chicken or the egg, you have to have one or the other. And that's how it makes things a lot easier once you have a name or once you have money, when it terms of getting distribution and getting into festivals and all of that stuff.
And regarding the characters, do you identify with anyone or more than the others, let's say?
Every single one, every single person in that film, there is a part of me in that person. Generally, I think that the protagonist or the main characters, like a lot of them, and then all of the supporting characters, like one piece of that person, and all those people are me. So even Standrick, the black gay clothing designer, believe it or not, he didn't improvise his lines. He was the one person that didn't improvise his lines. And so somewhere inside of me here, there is that character. And so yeah, I can relate to all of them because they all want something or they all are masking something, or they all stand for something, or there's a unique thing about them that, maybe I pulled something from my own life as part of the uniqueness thing about them. So yes.
And you also mentioned that you are half Japanese, so I was a bit curious about this part. Does it play any role in the way you write, let's say, how you perceive New York, let's say?
I mean, I'm sure it's instilled in me. When I first started speaking, it was actually I was living in Japan. I was, I don't know how big I was, about that big, and so I think maybe the discipline. I'm very disciplined and regimented when I terms to writing, which is you have to be because it's really hard to actually finish a screenplay. It doesn't seem like it's that hard. Oh, if you write a page a day, you could be done in 3 months, but it's much more than that. I have some other screenplays where it's more infused, like, this is an Asian gang pilot, or this character actually is half Japanese. I didn't write any half Japanese characters for Bound. Um, there was plenty of diversity in Bound already since we set it in New York City. So but it's in there somewhere, but it's definitely more prominent in some of my other projects where the themes are the lead is a half Asian person and the themes are heavily, ethnically ambiguous characters or racial things that people pulling apart and people torn with what side to go on. And but yeah, I mean, it's who I am, so it's going to be in there somehow, whether I choose consciously to write about it or it's just subconsciously happening.
And the film shows that living in New York is quite difficult. Is that the reality? Is living there difficult?
Well, I mean, the cost of living in New York it's a pretty expensive city in that sense. Um, it again also depends on where you are at your life. If you've got a well-paying job, it's much easier when you have money to live anywhere, really. Um, in terms of like if you're, like our lead character is homeless for a little bit, it can be very difficult, you know. There's so many people in New York City, but at the same time you can feel so alone. So that's something that can happen in the city. It's just a much different feel, you may live in an apartment building and not know one other person that lives in that apartment building, as opposed to living in the suburbs. You might know all of your neighbors outside because of, going out and trick-or-treating or barbecues and stuff like that. Um, I love living in the city. I love the energy. I love the vibrancy. And yeah, I think it could be as hard as you want it to be, and it can be easier at the same time if you want it to be easier.
Okay.
It's not totally the way I definitely explored certain aspects of this character's life. And as you can see, once she starts developing what I like to call found family, which are friends. The friends are essentially the family you get to choose. If you have the right support system and support group, everything becomes much easier.
And can you tell me a bit about the casting? How did that work out? You also have Jessica Pimentel, who's quite famous, I guess, through Orange is the New Black and all.
Yeah. So the first person we cast I already knew was Alexandra, who was, who was helping me with production on some other stuff. That was the first person I knew that was going to be cast. And then I knew I wanted to get about two people with some names. Like I knew I wasn't going to be able to afford Brad Pitt or whatever, but I wanted to get some recognizable names. I wanted to get some New York people in New York, actors in New York, and I wanted to I knew I wanted to really get some people that had a lot of stage experience as well, and not just a person that only done TV or film. So those three things I wanted to do. And I thought the first thing I should do is approach those two characters, Marta and Ois. And what I did was I hired a casting director and I said, these are the people I think I would like to see for this. And then I wrote individual cover letters to that person. And I said, please get this to Jessica's representation. Please get this to Ramin Karimlu's representation. I'd like to see them. And I personalized it. And then it's a waiting game. You wait to see, it can take a month. It can take 2 months. It could take a long time because maybe they're busy or whatever. Maybe, and maybe they are not busy, but they're like, I don't feel like reading a script today, so, and then you wait and you hear back, and then they say yes or they say no, and then you just kind of go down that list. So that was the process for those two characters. And once I can get those two characters and get a rough idea of when I can schedule them both, then I went to the casting director and I said, here, these characters, I just want to see great actors. I don't really care. They can be famous, they can be not famous. That I don't care. I just need to see people that fit these descriptions. And as you can tell in Bound, it was pretty specific what I wanted to see, So
And tell me a bit about Bryant Carroll, who played. I was very impressed by him in the movie.
Bryant, okay. I wrote that role for me. Or actually I wrote that role, and then while I was writing that role, I fell in love with that role. Because for me, I think it's one of the best roles I've ever written. One of the best characters I've ever written. It's incredibly complex. At first glance, people are like, oh, he's a terrible, evil human being. But the truth is, he, like all of the characters, they're all good and they're all bad. There's no perfect angel or the demon, evil and everybody is a mixture, and like I would like to think, or like I think that everyone is like that. We all have the capability of doing good. We all have the capability of doing bad, depending on how we grew up and the circumstances given to us. We've made choices that were the right choices, and we made choices of the wrong choices. When it comes to that character, Gordy, he just wants to take care of his family. He doesn't, but he lacks the capacity and the ability to do so. And he does it in the best way he can, which is to sell drugs, and he's definitely going through there's a lot of mental health issues going through that whole family, that whole bloodline. Bella's father killed himself, committed suicide at one point. So that's why I loved it, because I was like, he's kind of a bad guy, but he's not really a bad guy, because in the end, he might be in some ways the best guy. He doesn't lie. And I don't want to spoil it for those, but like he's never trying to do anything to harm. He's kind of like a Lenny and of Mice and Men, who accidentally kills the rabbits, but he doesn't want to kill the rabbits. He just does. So I wrote that role, and halfway through writing it, I was like, wow, this is a really fascinating role. I'd love to dig into this. So I grew a giant beard, like a giant COVID beard. And I was like, okay, I'm going to cut like 30 pounds. I'm going to get, over a span of a few months, I'm going to get really thin and like a meth head, like a meth addict or something like that. And I was like, and I'm going to play this role. I was like, but just in case, I'll audition. And I auditioned. And every single person just was this kind of mean guy that would yell, like a one-note character. And then I saw Brian Carroll. Bryant's he really pushed a lot of the sensitivity of the kind of blubbering baby, that's like that lashes out and then is apologizing and he's really hurt. And I cried because he was so good, and it was amazing to see the character go from the page to actually be living in front of me. And then the second reason why is I knew I was going to give up that role. And so and I was like, all right, I'm gonna audition him. I'm gonna have him call him back for the other role just in case. And I had him come back for the Donnie character, that Gordy's sidekick essentially. And I was like, no, he's too good. So I gave him that role. And I'm still mad I did that in some ways. But I ended up having a lot to tackle, directing it and everything. So,
Okay.
But yeah.
And can you tell me a bit about the cinematography, what you wanted to do in the visual aspect of the film, let's say?
Yeah, so we used 98% of it or something like that. We shot handheld. And I said I wanted it to have kind of a edgy, rough, freelancy feel. Also, in certain areas, like the big fight in the cafe, for instance, I wanted that to feel a little bit organic, and I wanted it to flow, and it wasn't. I didn't want it choreographed. I wanted it to feel dangerous in a certain way. So we shot that, and then I kind of sketched it out, like, guys, go here, here. And then I had two cameras shooting that day, and I said, guys, you're part of this, you're part of the choreography as a cinematographer. I want you to be handheld. And I was like, this is what we're gonna do, and I want you to come here, and I want you to come here. And so we kind of, like, it was like a bit of a dance in that sense. And so I wanted to have that feel of that slice of life, realistic. If I was sitting in the restaurant, I could look over and I could be a part of it, like I'm peering in, like a voyeuristic feel. So that's why we shot it mostly handheld. We did put it on sticks at time, and then I realized when we were editing, I'm like, this feels weird that 98% of the movie is a little bit like this, and then now all of a sudden so we put some type of filter on to give it a little handheld shake, even though we were on sticks, because some of those cameras, we can get quite heavy for some of those long scenes after a while. So that was the inspiration about that. So we didn't have any, and also finances, like renting some of that equipment for long dolly shots and this and that, it's quite expensive. And I said, look, we're going to shoot this indie style. So if we want to have a push in, like, grab a skateboard, throw a box on top of it, and just kind of push in or whatever, or just walk in. I was like, I wanted to have that feel. So that was the main inspiration.
And about the music, you chose some interesting tracks, as far as I can say.
Yeah, so again, there's two aspects about the music. First, the score. The score, in that one scene, there's a homeless man and he has this box, right? That's called a shruti box. It's an Indian instrument, a bellowing instrument, similar in some ways to accordion, right? So I knew my friend had that box, and I said, wow, this is an amazing instrument. I was like, it feels like a pair of lungs. It feels like it's breathing. And exploring a little bit, I was like, this can add some nice tension to certain scenes, just kind of like a pulse almost. And I knew I wanted to do something unique. I always want to do something. I'm always trying to find the new, unique way of doing something, or unused way. So for that, I was like, what if we use this as the score? We could build around it. And so we chose that for that. And then I said, for the other instruments for the score, I said, let's, there's a lot of metal theme in here. There's a heavy metal theme. Her family, they listen to metal. There's a heavy metal bar. She's a metal artist. So I said, let's use, guitar. Let's use the bass as other elements for the score. And then the other element, I think we used 4 instruments. There was the scores, there was the guitar, the bass, the shruti box, and then I was like, we need something pretty. So he has some the composer Ethan Startzman had a tuning fork that was set to something thing kind of that would be used in like a yoga class or a meditation thing. And so we use that as well. So that was the score. In terms of music, I said, I want to use this is an indie film. Let's use all indie bands. I was like, I want them to be essentially unknown. And I want to, part of it, because I know that I could probably get that. I don't have to pay. If you pay for some of these songs can cost you $500,000. So I said, no, let's keep this indie feel, the handheld shake, the actors that are very good actors, but not huge named actors. And let's do that. So I actually approached a few friends of mine that were in bands, and one of them I said, hey, I need a lot of like heavy hardcore metal music for the world of Gordy, you know? And I had one guy who actually was running social media for a band label, and that was the kind of music. And that person also did some of the art stuff for the film. So he was the production designer for the film. So he got that kind of group and that world of music. And then I had another friend who did more indie rock music. And I talked to him. I was like, hey, do you have some bands, some friends that you play with, or other bands that you know? And he helped me find some of those people. Then I threw stuff on social media and said, hey, guys, I'm shooting this film. You know, if you want to be featured in the background of the music, maybe some will be used in some of the montages. You know, I didn't know what I was going to use it for. And then I just listened to all of these tracks. It took a long time, actually. Um, if you had a big studios, they just pay somebody, say, hey, you're the music supervisor. Give me, 200 options of songs and I'll pick them, choose. I had that, but it was all unknown bands or small bands or, indie bands up and coming. So, yeah, and a lot of it was just about the feel and the vibrancy and the energy it gave for that moment or in that scene, especially in like the montages. It was a little less important in terms of some of just the background music in the bar. But believe it or not, I would listen through the whole song and I would say, we're using this amount, because there'll be a crescendo right here that matches perfect with the tension of the moment. And it's all stuff that took a long time that will give a little bit of a feeling to the audience, but they won't see it,
Okay, okay. And what are the plans for the movie? Are there any plans for distribution, or is something like that happening?
Yeah, so I have a producer rep that's talking to distributors now. We've had some distribution offers. My original plan that I'm sticking with so far was I want to play the festivals first off. We've gotten into another festival in LA called Dances with Films. It's a 27-year, it's one of the best industry festivals in North America. And I think it might be the only real industry festival in Los Angeles, or one of the biggest ones at least. So sometime between June 20 and June 30, we don't know our screening date yet. We'll be playing at the Chinese Theater, TCL Chinese Theater. So we're really excited about that. That's the next festival that we know of for sure. We're still waiting to hear back from dozens and dozens of festivals. And then once fall, we want to play until about fall. So a little bit before then, a couple of months before then, we'll settle on who we want as a distributor, and then we'll try to time what we will time if we get into a festival in the fall, that date with the release date, whether it's theatrical or just streaming or both. So that is the plan right now. Until then, we'll just continue to continue trying to talk to people like you to get the word out, kind of build a grassroots like fan base, bit by bit, through the festivals, through interviews and whatever reviews we can get. It's not too easy to get reviews for an indie film that hasn't been released yet. So thank you so much for having this platform. I mean, it really, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to get a movie made, to get a movie distributed on the indie circuit. It's so hard. And stuff like this really can just even level it up each one bit by bit out of the thousands and thousands of movies. So we really appreciate what you're doing, Panos. It's very, very good.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great compliment, actually.
Yeah.
And for you, any future projects? Do you know what you're working on next?
Yeah, I mean, I have that script, the original script that I still want to do. So if you have $5 million and you want to be a movie producer, please let me know. Or if anybody that sees this, it's a great script. It's fantastic. But there's that one, and part of that is contingent on, once this gets released, being able to take this film to people with the money like that and just being like, hey man, you want to make a movie? here's proof that we can make a movie, a good movie. Here's the script if you want to read it. Some will, some won't. So there's that project. I actually have a few ideas. I've never done a short, and I do want to do a short, and I feel like they're in terms of festivals, at least, it's a lot of the festivals prefer to schedule a bunch of shorts and program a bunch of short movies instead of features. So I would like to have some ideas for shorts. In some ways, it's easier because it's less money and it's much smaller, but it's really hard for me, who likes to have a lot going on and very layered, to find a way to distill something so, to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes max. So I'm finding it's in some ways it's harder for me to do that. So it's a challenge that I do want to do. So that is the plan, is to do one short this year and start the pre-production for another feature once we start getting some money rolling in for that.
Okay. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
And thank you for taking the time to review Bound. We're very happy that you did that, and very appreciative. So thank you so much, Boss.
Okay. Thank you too. Have a nice day. Bye.
Have a nice day, everyone.